Hi friends, welcome back to our channel Learning Literature Online. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe it and hit the bell icon. Today we are going to discuss a famous play, The Emperor Jones, written by well-known American playwright Eugene ONeill. The play, The Emperor Jones, is a drama in 8 scenes, and it was the playwright's first attempt into expressionist writing. The playwright Eugene ONeill was born on October 16, 1888 and was died on November 27, 1953. He was born into a family of theatre where his father was an actor with a touring theatre company, so he was largely educated at boarding schools because his family will be on tour the most of the times and will be back to the home only on vacations. He won Nobel Prize for Literature in 1936 and had introduced into US drama the technique of realism, which was initially used by Russian playwrights like Anton Chekhov. His major plays are The Emperor Jones, Desire Under the Ems, The Great God Brown, Long Day's Journey into Night, Anna Christie, and The Hairy Ape. The play Emperor Jones is based loosely on an event in Haitian history. The play was published in 1921 in 8 scenes. The play is a tale of Brutus Jones, who was a former Pullman porter, and which show the decline of this Pullman porter. The play is an experimental work where the playwright mixes the techniques of expressionism and realism, which were opposites in content and meaning. First and last scene is in realistic way, and the remaining scenes are in the mode of expressionism. Here, the playwright uses an unreliable narration. The play is narrated in multiple point of view, and it is an oblique commentary on US occupation of Haiti. The play is based on O'Neill's own hallucinatory experience in Honduras in 1909 while he was hacking through the jungles of Honduras for gold mining in 1909. The characters of the play are Brutus Jones, the titular emperor of an unidentified West Indies island. He spent 10 years as working as a train porter in the United States. A game of dice had spiraled wildly out of control, and accidentally he killed a man named Jeff, who was his friend, over a dispute during a game of craps. And he got jailed. In jail, Brutus then killed a white prison guard and escaped America as a stowaway on a ship bound for the West Indies. Once he reached on the island, he recognized how impressive he was to the natives and exploited their gullibility and innocence to become their ruler. He was greedy and prideful without thinking of the ethical implications of his misdeeds. He had tried to accumulate wealth from this poor Caribbean island. Finally, his misdeeds catch up with him. In the dark forest, he was haunted by hallucinations about his sordid past. Then Smithers, ostensibly a friend of John's but a profoundly racist white cockney trader who looks upon John's with thinly veiled malice, warns John's of the revolution and can hardly believe it when the natives manage to make silver bullets with which to kill their emperor. Smithers is a crooked and evil character who seems to always side with whoever has power. Then Lem. Lem was the leader before the advent of John's, the leader of the insurrection which finally kills the ill-fated emperor. He had tried to kill John's at first by shooting him but failed. Lem stages a revolution and melts down a bunch of coins in order to make the silver bullets that end up killing John's. Then old native woman. The old woman is in and out of the story by the end of the first scene itself. She plays a significant role in the narrative as she is one of the narrator. At the beginning, she tells Smithers that a rebellion is underway and Jones is in danger. The witch doctor is a figment of the emperor's fevered imagination, appearing in a weird hallucinatory sequence near the end of the story. He is an image of Africa, a spiritual shaman who wants to make Jones into a human sacrifice to a godlike crocodile lying in wait in a nearby river. Themes of the play are racism. It is clearly depicted. As the conversations go on, we can realize it. History and collective memory, conscience, trauma, and the past. At Forest, Jones confronts apparitions, which is clear indication of collective memory. Power and systematic oppression, that is occupation of the remote Caribbean island. Slavery, autocracy, spirituality, godliness, humanity and fear, denial. These are the themes of the play. The Emperor Jones. The play begins late afternoon in the emperor's palace. Here, a conversation occurs between an old black lady and Smithers, who is a white cockney trader. The lady reveals that the natives have gone to a hill and a rebellion is underway. And moments later, Brutus Jones enters the throne room with an annoyed sleepy wearing a heavily decorated uniform. Jones threatens to hurt whoever woke him up. Smithers catches John's attention, admits he woke Jones up, and tells Jones that he has news. Jones sits on his throne and demands that Smithers tell him the news. Smithers sarcastically asks Jones where the court and servants are, but Jones just yawns and says They are drinking rum in town, and Smithers should know this, given how much time he spends drinking with the natives. Smithers scoffs that drinking is part of his job. John sneers. Smithers angrily reminds Jones that he helped Jones when he first arrived on the island. Jones puts a hand on his revolver and reminds Smithers to be polite. Smithers apologizes. Jones insists that he is an entirely different person now. Smithers retorts that nobody else would hire Jones once it got out that he had been in jail in the United States. But Jones simply looks at Smithers and says that he knows Smithers has been in jail too. Jones explains that he is not acting as emperor for the glory. He puts on a show to entertain the natives, but he just wants their money. Smithers says that the natives are out of money. Jones laughs and says that is not true since he is still emperor. Smithers asks Jones about his law breaking habits. Jones insists that the emperor doesn't have to follow the laws, especially since big stealing like he does is what made him emperor. Smithers declares that Jones truly did trick the natives and remarks on Jones' good luck. Jones is offended. Smithers' story about the silver bullet was luck. When Jones first came to the island, he got into an altercation with one of the natives who used lem, and when the man's gun misfired, John shot him and then said that he could only be killed by silver bullets. That is the story of silver bullet. The natives brought it, and Jones laughs that the natives are fools. Smithers asks Jones if the rumors are true and he had a silver bullet made. Jones says they are and explains that he told the natives that he will kill himself with it. Jones pulls out the bullet and tells Smithers that it is his good luck charm. Jones explains that at first whiff of trouble he will resign, take his money and leave. Smithers knowingly asks Jones if he won't go back to the States, and Jones says he could since he wasn't ever in jail there. Smithers is disbelieving and asks Jones about the stories that Jones killed a white man in the States. Jones insists that he is not scared of lynching. Further, Jones says he will kill Smithers if he doesn't straighten up. Smithers tries to laugh and Jones tells more of his story. He suggests he might have gone to jail for killing a black man who cheated him at dice, and then he might have also killed a prison guard. He says that all of this might not be true, but Jones will kill Smithers for telling anyone. Smithers seems terrified and reminds Jones that he has always been a friend, and finally tells Jones his news. When Jones rings the bell to call his servants, nobody comes. Jones is enraged. After a moment, he composes himself and declares that it is time to resign. Smithers warns Jones about Lem, the native chief, as Lem hates Jones. Smithers also warns Jones about the creepiness of the forest, but Jones brushes off these warnings. He insists that the natives are stupid. His escape will be easy, and if the natives do catch him, he will commit suicide with his silver bullet. The sound of A tom-tom reaches the place. The drum beat. Smithers explains that the natives have begun to prepare to cast spells. John insists he is not scared and reminds Smithers that he is an upstanding member of the Baptist Church. Smithers laughs and John bids him goodbye. As night falls, John reaches the edge of the forest and search. John listens to the tom-tom and wonders if the natives have begun to cross the plain. John decides to eat and scans the ground in search of his white stones. He finds it, but instead of finding good food under it, there is nothing. John discovers that there are many white stones, none of which have food under them. He is in the wrong spot. John is distraught and lights a match to see better. The tom-tom's rhythm quickens and John flings the match away. He decides that lighting it was stupid as it will give his location away. John turns around to scan the plain as the little formless fears and crawls out of the forest. John turns to face the forest and asks the forest if it is mocking him. The formless fears laugh in reply, and John leaps in fright. He yells, pulls out of his gun, and shoots at them. They scuttle into the forest, and John listens to the tom-tom. He tells himself that the fears were just pigs and urges himself into the forest. Several hours later, the moonlight illuminates a clearing. Jeff, the black man John had killed in the States, crouches and throws dice on the ground. John comes into view on the edge of the clearing and tries to cheer himself up. He picks at his uniform, which is torn. As John enters the clearing, he hears the clicking sound of the dice. He sounds afraid as he remarks that it sounds like dice. Suddenly he notices Jeff. John is transfixed and he addresses Jeff, wondering with fear how Jeff ended up on the island. John asks Jeff if he is a ghost. Jeff doesn't reply, and John shoots Jeff. When the smoke clears, Jeff is gone. The tom-tom beat gets faster, and John runs back into the forest. Just before midnight, John stumbles upon a road. His uniform is even more torn, and he yells that he is melting in the heat. John pulls off his coat and flings it away. As John rests, he wonders where the road came from. He has never seen it before and becomes terrified that there are ghosts around. John prays to God that he doesn't see any more ghosts. As John studies the moon, a silent chain gang of black convicts walk into the road, supervised by a white prison guard. When John notices the chain gang, the gang begins working on the road. The guard looks angrily at John and motions for him to join the convicts, and John obeys as though he is in a trance. John has no shovel, but he matches the shoveling motions of the others. Despite this, the guard whips him anyway. Angry, John lifts his arms over his head as though he has a shovel in his hands to hit the guard over the head with. When he finally realizes he has no shovel, he pleads with the convicts to lend him one of theirs. Cursing, John and pulls out his revolver and shoots the guard in the back. As he does, the forest and chain gang disappear. The tom-tom increases tempo and John crashes away into the woods. A few hours later, John reaches a clearing with a stump in the middle of it. He falls to the knees to plead with Jesus to forgive him for killing Jeff and the prison guard for stealing from the natives. John looks at his tattered shoes and decides they are making his feet hurt more. He takes them off and holds them in his lap as a silent crowd of white Southerners dressed in clothing from the 1850s enters the clearing. They gather around the stump as an attendant leads in a group of slaves. John notices nothing until the auctioneer calls the crowd to attention and taps John on the shoulder, motioning for him to get on the stump. John leaps up in an attempt to get away, and the auctioneer describes John's strength to the assembled planters. When the auctioneer begins the bidding, John realizes he is being sold at a slave auction. A planter finally purchases John and auctioneer pushes John towards the man. Angrily, John draws his gun and shoots both the auctioneer and his purchaser. The clearing disappears and Tom beats faster. John runs away. After wandering for another 2 hours, John wanders into a clearing that is long and skinny. With vines creating an arched ceiling, his pants are so torn. He is wearing little more than a loin cloth. John wails to God, wondering what he will do. Since he only has his silver bullet left, he decides he needs to rest and throws himself onto the ground. The moonlight brightens incrementally, and 2 rows of black men, also wearing loincloths, come into view. They sit along each side of the clearing, swaying as though they are in a ship. They begin to wail rhythmically, and John notices them. Though he tries to ignore them, John raises his voice to join theirs. As the voices fade, John continues his mad dash through the forest. Early in the morning, John enters another clearing by a river, still wailing. He moves as though he is in a trance and sinks to his knees beside a pile of rocks that resemble an altar. John asks God to protect him as a Congo witch doctor jumps out from behind a tree. The witch doctor begins to dance and chant to the beat of the tom-tom, and John watches in fascination. The doctor dance is a story of being pursued by devils, and as the tension rises, John begins chanting and beating the ground in time. Suddenly, the witch doctor motions to John, and John understands that he is going to be offered as a sacrifice. From the river, the witch doctor calls a crocodile god. The crocodile stares at John as the witch doctor motions for John to approach it. The tom-tom reaches a fever pitch as John cries out and grabs his gun and shoots the crocodile with his silver bullet. The crocodile returns to river and the witch doctor disappears. but Jones just lies face down and cries. At dawn, Lem, his soldiers, and Smithers approach the edge of the forest from the clearing. One soldier discovers the spot where Jones entered the forest. Smithers is disgusted, but Lem calmly tells Smithers that they will catch Jones. As Smithers continues to insult the natives, Lem continues to reply with the same thing. When they hear snapping twigs in the forest, Lem sends in soldiers. Smithers reasons that the snapping could be John's and the sound of rifles comes from the woods. Lem smiles and tells Smithers that Jones is dead. He explains that he and his men spent the night casting charms and melting their money to make silver bullets. Smithers laughs when he learns that the natives truly believe John's assertion that he can only be killed by silver bullets, and he calls Lem crazy. Soldiers emerge from the forest carrying John's dead body. Smithers mocks John's body and mocks the natives as they carry John's away. Analysis of the story. The story is mental decline of self-imposed emperor. As we can see, he is a mental trauma by the end of the story. While he was in forest, he is facing a kind of apparitions of different persons he had killed and the crimes he had done in his earlier life. John's mask is actually John's mask is true identity of African American. John's is a traitor American. Here in this play, we can see themes of black and white, especially racism, and themes of good and evil, and themes of oppressor and oppressed. Conversation between Lady and Smithers, Smithers and Jones and his meeting with apparitions can be clear picture of conversation between oppressor and oppressed. Two opposite movements of expressionism and realism is being used in the play. Expressionism is used as a powerful emotional states and moods to be revealed. At the same time, realism brings out external reality. The playwright uses archetypes to depict slavery and African American people. Auction block, drums, and slave ships are some instances of archetypes. Archetypes are collective memory and primordial images that is being shared by group of people. Symbols used in the play are drum. Drum itself symbolizes John's heart, which can be heard by the end of the play while the play is in forest. Dice is in the dice game he had killed an African American Jeff. Then silver bullet. Silver bullet is used to exploit the gullibility and innocence of natives of this remote Caribbean island. Forest is another symbol where he is facing his mental trauma and apparitions. Thank you.